the Evolution Security Podcast. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Aaron Davis podcast. I've got my twin brother here, my sidekick, helping me along. And, you know,
it has become the Aaron Davis podcast.
well, I'm getting a big head here. I'm wanting to take over. Eric, this is my show now. No, this is the Evolution Security Podcast with me, Aaron Davis, and then my twin brother, Eric Davis. We're here for another gear and mindset episode, and just looking forward to hearing a lot about what Eric has for us. And this time, actually, I'm going to be Eric's sidekick this time around.
It's about time.
Good to see you.
Good to see you too, man. Good to be hanging out. So, man, I think we'll just kick this off. You know, sometimes we like to talk about gear, and most folks in our community, they see gear. A lot of folks, I should say, you know, it's all about the guns and the knives and all that good stuff, which is all cool. We love that stuff. But we also like to talk about gear that really supports us on the path, right? And one of those pieces of gear can always be exercise equipment, right? And so I thought, man, what a great tool to talk about, and that's the kettlebell. So telling a little story, I had no clue what kettlebells were many years ago, and of course, like many things, Aaron, I get introduced to almost anything that's important.
Mike Brown?
Yeah, it's like anything that is really important to me in my life, training-wise, Mike Brown has exposed us to it.
You just had to barely speak up, and I knew what you were going to say.
Well, he told me a cool story, and that's why I kind of like opening up with that is, you know, of course, anybody that knows Mike Brown and has possibly listened to any of our episodes, Mike's a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu under Egan Machado, but he also had his grappling start as a Division I wrestler for Cornell. And he tells a story about the first time he discovered kettlebells, and this is before they were at all popular. CrossFit wasn't big, none of that. And Mike told me about them, and he said that he discovered them when Cornell had a dual meet with a Russian wrestling team. And he said that essentially these guys didn't look athletic at all. But yet they manhandled the team. And Mike said that he talked to one of the coaches, like, what is the difference? You guys are so strong. And the coach said kettlebells. You know, of course, kettlebells do seem to have, I don't know if they really came from Russia. I don't know. I think they have. But again, they were definitely made popular out of Russia. And so, yeah, the kettlebell is essentially, for folks, most people know what they are, but if for some reason you don't, they're just a big ball of steel with a big handle on top. And they essentially, they're a strength implement, but they also are off balance in certain fashions depending on the type of exercise you're doing. So they really help with both conditioning, strength, and strengthening a lot of the muscle fibers and interconnective tissue that may not get hit on a standard exercise. So they're just a good tool. So with that said, Aaron, I thought I'd bring in a pretty cool article from breakingmuscle.com. Now, believe it or not, I found this not too long ago, but it was published first in February of 2012. So it's been out there a little while. And I want to talk about a specific exercise, and that's the basic kettlebell swing. And I'll start to say this: it's a staple of my exercise routines, just because I feel like it's been good to my back. I feel like, again, it's a good conditioning tool. But this article really hit it on the head, and it gave me a little bit of understanding why folks should seek this exercise out.
Bro, you're talking about the standard one where you're just swinging forward and back under your legs and then straight back up.
That's it. You're thrusting,
okay.
and you're not lifting it. So people, and I'm also gonna place a link, possibly to Pavel Tsatsouline, and I'm probably messing up his name. He's a great patriot, U.S. citizen now from Russia. And just because he's the guy that really pushed it in the U.S., I'll put a link to him explaining the kettlebell swing into the show notes. So just the basic swing. It's you're essentially thrusting. You know, when you pick the bell up like a standard deadlift, and you're thrusting with your hips to cause the swing, and you're not lifting. Just like you mentioned, and you're letting it swing, and each time you're tightening your gut and breathing hard and thrusting that forward with your hips. So let's go ahead and read this. The kettlebell swing, why it's the perfect exercise. Are you looking for an exercise to improve your posture, strengthen your posterior chain, strengthen your heart, and help you lose weight? Look no further. You're looking for the kettlebell swing. Thomas Edison once said, "The doctor of the future will give no medicine. Instead, he will interest his patients in the care of the human frame, nutrition, and the cause and prevention of disease." If you were looking for a single exercise to care for the human frame, you'd probably look for an exercise that helped us regain our posture from one of sitting hunched over to one that was upright, extended, and open. You'd probably also look for an exercise that worked the posterior chain to overcome all the negative effects of sitting. And if you could find one exercise that could do both of those, you'd probably also wonder if you could find one super exercise that could strengthen your heart and help you lose weight too. It's called the kettlebell swing. Here are some reasons why it's become one of the number one exercises most people should be doing. Number one, it's better for your back. And that's the sole reason why I thought I would bring this up. So
I need to hear that.
Yeah, Aaron, do you have any kettlebells?
Yeah, I do. Mm-hmm.
I thought you did.
Yep.
So firstly, and perhaps most significantly, Dr. Stuart McGill, well, I'll digress a second. He is a professor at the University of Waterloo, and he's a research professor for the mechanisms of back injuries.
Wow.
So the guy knows something about the back. And so what he found was that the kettlebell swing shows a reverse polarity. Excuse me, let me say this right. Found that kettlebell swings show a reversed polarity of posterior shear at L4 and L5 when compared to traditional posterior chain exercises. Now, Aaron, where the L5 comes, the L5 and S1 is the disc that blew out and damaged and caused my major back injury 3 years ago.
That's where Becky had hers fused.
Yeah. So again, it shows this reverse polarity in the L5 and L4 region. This is important because those with lower back issues, traditional posterior chain exercises such as deadlifts, good morning, etc., may exacerbate the condition, while swings may not, for, again, using it for that manner, for those looking to strengthen the lower back and unable to use these traditional exercises, the swing may be just the thing that they're looking for. And I'll just add my own comments to that. I think that I've had the longest period of time without any major re-injury. And frankly, I hate to admit it, it's because I have not been doing heavy deadlifts and heavy squats anymore. And I don't like that. It's just something I have to admit. Maybe after, I meet my goals in jiu-jitsu, I'll start trying to progress again with that. I'm also going to get there's a couple of companies making squat belt mechanisms that I think that I may be looking into for squats, but otherwise it's light squats for me. So kettlebell swings, reason number 2, lower loads are safer. Because of the dynamic nature of the swing, the opportunity to overload or injure the body is quite low. A well-performed swing is ballistic in nature. A swing should be punched forward by the hips, not pushed slowly into place. So I'm going to skip that portion, not necessary. Between lower loads and the reversal of negative forces on the spine, those two factors alone may be why many with lower back issues credit the swing as the secret to rehabilitation of their injuries. And I'll stop there. I really think that I started noticing when I focused a lot on the swings, Aaron, is that I started noticing a big difference in how my lower back felt. And so when I found this article, I was pretty pumped about it because I thought, man, that could explain, coming from these doctors, and there's a chiropractor that's further in this article that discusses the efficacies of it as well. So yeah, I mean, for our audience members out there, again, we're trying to provide you with information on gear that's going to help you. And if you don't have a kettlebell, and even if you don't have much room in your home, like I've got a real nice home gym, but man, if you got a little bit of flat space and you can get you a couple of kettlebells, I think for men, I think a good start is a 35-pound kettlebell. And you can go up from there. I've got all the way up to 70 pounds at my house, which that's plenty still for me. Frankly, I use my 53-pounder most of the time. But yeah, go out there and grab a kettlebell, and I'll put the link to, number one, this article and a video of how to do the kettlebell swing properly for the audience out there. What do you think, Aaron?
Man, that's cool. You got me encouraged to. I did hit my kettlebell last week a little bit, and I did some swings and I did some curls with it.
Well, and Aaron,
you're encouraging me to jump on it this week.
Now, I have not done it in a while because I've just had other focus. So I think I'll admit to it be a tough one right now, but that's the 100 kettlebell swing challenge. And I used to be able to, not too long ago, be able to do 100 swings in a row with my 53. It's been a while. I don't think I can do that right now.
Explain that. Is that literally 100 without stopping?
Yes. Now, it's okay to kind of, get a breather for a split second, but the intent is to keep going all the way through. Now, if you feel your technique breaking down, stop a second. And then jump back in, but yeah, 100 kettlebell swings. Like if you don't have a whole lot of time for a workout, that used to be one of my main workouts. Is that if I didn't have a lot of time, go out and I would do a 15-minute warm up, doing some basic cardio and mobility stuff, and I'd knock out 100 kettlebell swings and I'd be done.
Man. That's my kind of workout.
Yeah, I got that idea from Tim Ferriss. So, yeah, let's get our kettlebells going out there, folks.
Very cool. Yeah, like you said, man, that's some good gear to talk about.
Just like we did heart rate monitors, and now there's an exercise implement that's not too big and not too expensive. I mean, you can almost find a 35-pound or a 25-pound kettlebell at almost any of your box stores these days.
Do you think I could go down to the local Dick's and get one?
I think you could, man.
Dude, why name your store Dick's?
Yeah, I don't understand it. Let's talk about Keeper's Concealment. They are the original authority on Appendix holsters and Appendix training, offering high-performance handgun training, specializing in concealed carry performance. Keeper's Concealment is also a proud affiliate of CCWsafe, the truly proven legal service membership company offering dedicated legal defense. Heaven forbid you're forced to use lethal force. Use code KC10OFF and check them out at ccwsafe.com/keepers. To buy a holster, sign up for a class, inquire about hosting a course, or join CCWsafe, you'll find it all at keepersconcealment.com. Well, so Aaron, now we'll go ahead and move on to a little more serious subject. And we've mentioned...
Yeah, man.
Go ahead.
Yeah, let's tear into some of this stuff, man.
Yeah. So we've mentioned this before, and most of our audience members, this is not going to be new to them. But the FBI Uniform Crime Reporting Program released the 2020 statistics last year, and it doesn't look good for violent crime, does it, Aaron?
No, it does not.
So just going to a summary, and all we're really going to hit on right now is the violent crime. In 2020, there were an estimated 1,277,696 violent crimes. When compared with the estimates from 2019, the estimated number of robbery offenses fell 9.3%, and the estimated volume of rape revised definition offenses decreased 12%. The estimated number of aggravated assault offenses, however, rose 12.1%, and the volume of murder and non-negligent manslaughter offenses increased 29.4%. Isn't that astounding, Aaron?
Yeah, it is. And what really sticks out to me, what it states, right, is that robbery went down, rape went down, but aggravated assault, and let's make sure everybody knows what that really is. It's attempted murder.
Yeah, you beat me to it. Exactly. Let's hit on that harder, Aaron. Say that again.
Yeah, whenever you hear the term aggravated assault, that is a new euphemism for attempted murder.
Which, like Tom Givens always says, that just means that somebody tried to kill you, but it didn't work.
Yep.
And yeah, it's so you can think about modern medicine. Think about it this way: aggravated assault coupled with modern medicine. Think of what the percentage of murder would be if we didn't have the new modern medicine. I mean, especially like, even we talk about this a lot too, is how TCCC, from our experience in SWA or in Afghanistan and Iraq, so on and so forth, has taught us how to deal with gunshot wounds. Mm-hmm. So yeah, if we didn't have that, man, there would be a lot more people passing. Well, Aaron, like you were kind of hitting on, criminals are emboldened, and frankly, I would, a lot of folks see through this as well. Is that's what happens when the media vilifies law enforcement. You got a lot of leftists pushing defund the police, and a lot of departments have actually defunded their police departments. One good example is Seattle has, and I may be wrong on this, but I believe that New York has done that as well. But on another note, New York just fired hundreds of police officers because they didn't get their vaccination. All while crime is skyrocketing in the big cities, New York specifically, New York, LA, Seattle, Chicago, just name any of the big Democrat-run cities, and they've got George Soros funded DAs that will not prosecute violent crime. They have bail and sentencing reforms. So frankly, like the old saying, it pays to do crime, right? I mean, it's amazing that they think that won't result in a requisite level of increase in crime, and that 30% increase in murders, that's up 30%, the highest rate increase since the 1960s, since they even started recording this. So again, it's not all doom and gloom, because let's face it, that's in these large cities, which if I were folks in those cities, I'd be moving. How about you?
Oh, yeah. I'm glad to be in a smaller town. Although our crime rate several miles down the street, about 15 miles, it's pretty rough over there. We make it on the first 48 hours quite a bit.
Yeah, some of my favorite, one of my favorite shows is First 48, which I don't even know if that's on anymore. Wasn't that part of at least a lot of the cop shows were taken off the air? Isn't that interesting? It's so political. We got to take these. We got
one
take
of my
these,
favorite.
Yep.
Just saying, one of my favorite shows. What was it called? Live PD. Yeah, they took that off the air, and it was actually, they were filming it here in Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Yep.
One of the main hosts was from Tulsa. One of the SWAT team members here.
Yeah, that's
they
right.
shut that down.
They called him Sticks, didn't they?
Yep, Sticks. Yeah, he's cool.
Aaron, before I get much further, I just want to add one comment about the UCR. Tom Givens always points this out, that the UCR is voluntary data. Mm-hmm. So all these percentages, that's voluntary data. Not all these police departments actually submit their data, and go figure, Aaron, some of them don't submit the data because they don't want it known that their city's so shitty. Frankly, forgive the French there, but I just wanted to point that out. And that brings me to kind of starting to mention a letter sent to the Department of Justice, or specifically the dishonorable Merrick Garland, from Senator Chuck Grassley, where he mentions a study done by the Council on Crime Justice. Let me say that right, Aaron. Yes, I was right. It's the Council on Criminal Justice. Yes, so this study mentioned by Chuck Grassley was done by Professor Emeritus Richard Rosenfield of the University of Missouri, and Ernesto Lopez, Council on Criminal Justice Research Specialist. And what these folks found is that in 27 American cities, they found that there was an increase in violent crime of 44% since 2019. So again, a little different comparison, but I mean, we got some serious rise in crime, and I argue that it's mostly because of leftist policies.
Well, and let's really put an emphasis on this, right? I know everybody hears the dates there, but we're talking about from 2019, an increase starting in 2019, and we're seeing the increases in 2020 and 2021. Of course, that's all during all this craziness And yes, a lot of it in Democrat-run cities. All the COVID restrictions in some cities, all the legitimate aspects of COVID when, we were still trying to figure this stuff out. But nonetheless, it all has coincided with, to me, the atmosphere of constant fear that the media and government is trying to keep people in, let alone the riots last year. Again, you mentioned earlier the defunding of the police and the demonization of the police, law enforcement in general, and being soft on crime. But,
and I think they call part of that, they call it the Minneapolis syndrome, to where police officers don't want to stop people for what they see as a crime. They don't want to risk, especially if it's nonviolent at the time. We know how, in many cases, nonviolent stops can turn very violent very fast. And these young officers, they're concerned about that one situation that's going to get them on TV, on video, and be the next political football, even though it's likely a justified action. And next thing you know, they're being prosecuted. And that's a goal of a lot of these leftist DAs is really doubling down on prosecuting law enforcement officers for just doing their job. So
hence why, as we've talked to Chuck Haggard, who's got a real good beat on what officers are up to and what they're feeling, that whoever can get out is getting out.
Well, interestingly enough, a good friend of mine, I was just deployed in 2020, and a young officer was in fact a NYPD officer. And he spoke with me afterwards. By the way, he listens to the show. And I didn't mention that I would talk about this, so I won't mention his name right now. Shout out. You know who you are, buddy. And he told me, he's like, I got back. I didn't want a part of it. And so now he works full time for his National Guard unit.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so he left the department. He's like, yeah, I'm not doing it anymore.
And you said he was a young officer, or he barely started his career?
I don't know how long he had been in NYPD. When I say young officer, it's probably because I'm getting older. And
I see.
He's a lieutenant in the Army.
Okay, so he's
in Signal,
Okay, cool.
But yeah, so again, all of these factors, these unintended consequences, have ramifications in crime and our safety. And that brings us to the next point. So, Aaron, various statistics out there that you can even get from the CDC and various sources, that conservatively people use firearms every year as low as in the 200, 300,000 a year, upwards of possibly 2.5 million people a year save their lives, or a loved one or someone close to them save their lives. And 85% of the time, the trigger doesn't even have to be pulled. So, Aaron, isn't it interesting that you got the Biden administration, rabid anti-gunners, and again, mentioned him earlier, the dishonorable Merrick Garland, they're concentrating on gun control measures as a way to deal with gun violence.
Yeah, and of course it's gun control, of course, on regular FFLs and people that purchase firearms through normal channels that, by and large, basically are not the criminals that they're saying they're going after.
Yeah, absolutely, and
it's bullshit.
And to that note, Senator Chuck Grassley sent this letter that I mentioned earlier, so I'm going to read a little bit of it, Aaron. Attorney General Garland, on February 3rd, the Justice Department released its latest fact sheet on gun violence reduction efforts. This fact sheet discusses policies already promoted by the Biden administration's June 2021 gun crime strategy. Notice how they say gun crime.
Yeah.
That's a little silly. Of course, we know what they're intending there. I am concerned that the Biden administration's strategy and the DOJ's implementation of it politicize our response to violent crime by misdirecting energy to ineffective partisan gun control solutions. The DOJ will have little to no effect on gun crime. Absolutely, there's no way that any of this is going to affect gun crime, as they call it. I'll just use their phrase for a second. It's not going to affect violent crime,
and at all,
not at all. The DOJ will also target and intimidate law-abiding businesses and citizens for exercising their Second Amendment rights. We have a serious violent crime problem, which requires serious policy solutions. At least 16 U.S. cities set murder records in 2021. A study from last month, the study we just mentioned, found that 27 major U.S. cities experienced a 44% increase in homicides since 2019. Attacks on law enforcement also continue to rise. In 2021, law enforcement officers were victims of more felonious killings than since the September 11 attacks. Ambush-style attacks on law enforcement spiked 115% in 2021. I'm going to comment on that. That is also a result of disrespecting law enforcement and encouraging certain segments of society that it's okay to commit violent attacks on law enforcement. And you got the media that is the biggest to blame to that, because they keep driving home that law enforcement shooting unarmed individuals, and the narrative that's typically not correct, that they just drive it home, and it causes certain individuals that may be unhinged to act this way.
Yes.
Despite this continued rise in crime or violent crime, the DOJ and the president have decided to focus time and taxpayer resources on policies that will not work, including addressing the so-called iron pipeline, ghost guns, what a joke, and lawful firearms dealers. According to the fact sheet, the DOJ's iron pipeline efforts will crack down on illegal gun trafficking from source cities, communities to 5 key market regions: New York, Chicago, Los Angeles, and San Francisco Bay Area, Sacramento region, and Washington, D.C. I'll add, those are all Democrat cities, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
Democrat-run
Democrat-run.
Pardon me, yes. The fact sheet creates the false impression that the explosion in crime in Democrat-controlled cities is entirely the fault of states with lower rates of crime. However, data from the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms shows that this assertion isn't true. In 2020, the most recent year for which data is available, every state provided the greatest number of recovered firearms within its own borders. In Illinois, for example, firearms from Illinois accounted for 5,937 recovered guns in Illinois, while neighboring Indiana accounted for only a third of that number. Guns from California account for more of its own firearms recoveries than all other states combined. New York-sourced guns accounted for almost as many guns recovered in New York as the next 2 states combined. So let's stop there and talk about it. Isn't it Democrats are always trying to blame other states that have pro-gun policies or laws as being the problem for their gun crime, which just clearly it shows that it's false.
And so that assumes that guns used in crimes are purchased legally in another state by you going through background checks, the whole deal, and then just being brought into the state. That's a joke. Dude,
Which
firearms,
we know. Yep, go ahead.
Firearms that are used in crime have been stolen.
Yep.
Rarely do criminals buy firearms. I mean, I've never seen any data on this, or it's been a long time, but let's just venture to say that a small percentage, let's just say 98%, 95% of all criminals purchase their guns on the street, which they either stole them or purchased a stolen gun from another criminal. That's a fact. But they cover that up and lie and create these new policies that just go after law-abiding businesses and citizens.
Well, Aaron, I'll skip ahead to your very point. He points out in here that your agency found that only 7% of firearms used in a crime are acquired from legal firearms dealers. Only 7%. And how many of those firearms are the scenario that you just stated? How many of them were stolen? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, so 7% of them were maybe purchased through legal channels, but then still stolen. Unfortunately, people don't protect their guns very well, or even in robberies, right? And criminals get a hold of them.
No, absolutely. And kind of skipping a little bit, this is a distraction from the reality that the explosion of crime in blue cities is directly attributable to those same cities implementing depolicing, installing progressive prosecutors, and enacting disastrous bail reform policies, kind of what we were hitting on earlier. So, kind of summarizing about ghost guns. So, the fact sheet also discusses the launch of a national ghost gun enforcement initiative. That's so nefarious, ghost gun. In reference the 325 homicides or attempted homicides connected to ghost guns recovered by the ATF between 2016 and 2020. 4 years, 325. That's abysmal. According to the FBI, there were 89,076 homicides in that time, to say nothing of the number of attempted murders. So again, homicides, 89,000, isn't even mentioning attempted or aggravated assault, right? Like we talked about. So not even accounting for that, that could triple that number, which is normally or at least double it. So therefore, less than 0.36% of homicides involve these ghost guns. So they claim that that's a threat to society when it's nothing. It's not.
Eric, let me ask this question back to the point we were just making earlier. Dude, how many criminals order a 80% lower for a Glock and mill their own Glock and put it together? How many of those 325 homicides were committed by some criminal that ordered all his parts from one of the Rock Your Glock stores?
Yeah, it's infinitesimal, and I would argue again that probably the majority of those 325 were likely stolen as well, because there's no way to, obviously, there's no way to trace where they came from, But I'll point this out. Manufacturing your own firearm has been a part of our tradition since the founding of this nation. All of a sudden, it's now a problem. But we know what the problem is. They want to limit liberties with firearms as much as they can, and this is just one area where they think they can get their nose into their camel's nose into the tent, and it's also they can sensationalize it and show the population that thinks this stuff works that they're doing something. you know. So with that said, Aaron, I'll kind of move forward in this. Essentially, Chuck Grassley also points out in this, Aaron, that the DOJ will not answer any of their oversight questions, even though Congress has oversight, constitutional oversight over the executive branch. So they just flip their noses at any request coming from a Republican, but yet he mentions in here that his Democrat colleagues get any bit of the information that they want. Of course, the Democrats are probably asking for information that reinforces their argument. So towards the end, he asked these several questions. How many murders occurred from 2016 to 2020? How many of those?
Can I back you up? Because I think this is a salient point. The reason why he's re-asking these questions is that he was asking these questions for them to prove that they were not politicizing their policies. In other words, that they were not politicizing their policies to go after gun owners.
Yeah,
law-abiding gun owners and law-abiding FFLs.
Yeah, very
so
very good point.
And so he's re-asking these questions. I just wanted to make that clear.
Yeah, thank you, Aaron. So, how many murders occurred from 2016 to 2020? How many of these murders involved ghost guns? How many of these murders involved conventional firearms? How many of those murders did not involve a firearm? Which, we've brought these statistics up before, and we don't keep them to memory. But, of course, handguns account for the bulk of murders. But nearly in that same number is blunt objects and fists. So, again, just disingenuous. Is it true that crime began to rise in June 2020? At the same time, riots were erupting and depolicing efforts began en masse throughout the country. I'm glad he asked that question that way, because we know that's when crime rates started rising. Is violent crime rising in cities with progressive prosecutors such as New York City, Chicago, Los Angeles, and San Francisco, the very same cities on the strike force list? So this is a strike force list, but they're yet the same cities that have implemented all these leftist policies that aid in increasing crime and encourage crime, for that matter. State and local policing are asking federal prosecutors for more assistance fighting crime. Are there any barriers to state and local police asking for more assistance in fighting crime? What percentage of crime are firearms used by the person who purchased them from an FFL?
Yeah, there you go. That's the key one.
Yeah, I mean, them trying to make it sound like there's, and I breezed over some of that, but we'll just describe it ourselves. Essentially, Senator Grassley is pointing out that the Department of Justice is trying to insinuate that there's a lot of FFL dealers going around trafficking guns and selling guns illegal, which is just horse crap. Because anybody that knows you're an FFL, everything is accounted for, and it just doesn't happen.
Well, Eric, so let me read that question again.
Yeah, go ahead.
What percentage of crime are firearms used by the person who purchased them from an FFL? Now, to me, that is pointing out with a question, hey, people that buy firearms from FFLs and normal and lawful transactions, filling out their background checks, etc., are not the ones committing crimes. So why are you focusing on those channels to, quote, reduce gun violence?
And to your point, it's in that 7%. So 7% of crimes committed with guns, I'm going to try not to use their terms, their pejoratives. 7% of those crimes, this is the question he's asking. How many of those 7% of crimes is used by the person that actually purchased it?
Yeah.
Because we know that data, we know that they have it, but they don't talk about that data. They want the population, the sheep out there, to believe that, people buying guns from gun dealers are going out and committing crimes. It's just non-existent to an extent. Obviously, there's people that have purchased firearms legally and used them in crimes. It's so low. It's not. It just proves the point that this is
so low.
politicized.
Why would it possibly be a good, effective, and efficient use of resources to go after that population?
Well, and let's be really clear. We're talking about this new receiver rule where the ATF is essentially actually legislated from the executive branch, which we know they do that. But I think the
extra constitutional.
Yeah. That now you're going to be forced to serialize and register. You gotta go through a background check. Let's say you've got an 80% lower or what they call a ghost gun. I think it's June is when this rule goes into effect.
It is June.
You're going to have to take that. Let's say it was an AR lower. You're going to have to take that and have it serialized, and then what you already owned, you're gonna have to go through a background check. So, to me, I sit there and think, I'm baffled. Wouldn't it be normal that for something that I already own, that now I have to go take to an establishment, have it serialized, and then go through a background check? Wouldn't it normally take legislation to do that?
Mm-hmm.
And I know I'm being facetious, but I'm just baffled that we see this happen, and this letter didn't mention that they're doing they're essentially any AR or AK pistol or any type of firearm related, if it's got a pistol brake, a pistol brace, an arm brace, and this litany of other features, which essentially makes any of them, they're claiming they'll be SBRs, unregistered SBRs, which will be effectively overnight. And this rule goes into effect in August.
Yep. Yeah, I was wanting to talk about that. So yeah, you're ahead of me on that.
So this goes into effect, and this is the real doozy. To me, the serializing and the registering, essentially, and I said that I meant to say registering because we know now the ATF, any of the 4473s, I think I'm saying that document right. They're being recorded. We know they're not supposed to by law. So it's effectively a backdoor registration.
Eric,
Go ahead.
I know this is a goofy little point, but do you remember that movie in the 80s, the Red Dawn? And when that Cuban leader told one of his underlings to go to the store, and he literally said, "Pull the 4473s so we can find out who owns guns in this town."
Oh yeah,
and go get them.
Yep, that was a well produced point for sure. That's a cautionary tale, that movie for sure.
Yeah, when communists invade the country, they know what documents to go grab and find the gun owners.
Yep, exactly. But to that point, that rule again effectively could make millions of gun owners that have legally possessed these firearms for years overnight felons. Again, I argue, how is that not legislating from through the use of a pen? I mean, that's the effect of law. And you get people that could go to jail for 10 years and a $250,000 fine,
Yeah.
for
So essentially, so Eric, did you have any more points about this Grassley letter?
I think we've made the points from it. Essentially, we don't have to go through all of it. Let's take a minute to talk about Origin. Origin supports us on the path. To quote Jocko, if you listen, then you know. They produce the best jiu-jitsu gis on the market, rash guards, spats, and Jocko Fuel supplements. They make t-shirts, hoodies, leather boots, and belts, with all their products made in the USA by U.S. workers, bringing manufacturing back. If you're interested in any of these Origin products, please go to our show notes and click on the affiliate link. You can also find our affiliate link on our website, evosec.org, in our blog page. Also use EvoSec10 at checkout for 10% off.
One of the things I wanted to talk about was this, they call it the factoring criteria ruling.
Yep.
And yes, you said right that it is going into effect in August 2022. And of course, there's been iterations of this, but I'm sure I'm pretty close on this. But in essence, you fill out a questionnaire, and if you answer, one of these questions, yes, then you've got a unregistered SBR because you purchased a AR pistol or AK pistol or whatever that is a short-barreled firearm that you have a stabilizing brace on, but you've always intended to fire it from your shoulder. But it's a questionnaire that, like you said, every single one of them is going to be registered. Fall under those criteria. They're factoring criteria. So
yeah, and it's a point system that that nearly all of those firearms fail. And like you said, by their criteria, you have an unregistered SBR.
So then the remedies, and they listed it in the proposal, right? You had three choices. You could turn that pistol brace into the federal government, or you could destroy it, or pay your happy tax and register it as an SBR. Get your fingerprints done and send those into the federal government, and your passport photos, send those in, and have your receiver laser etched with all your information on it, right?
Well, Aaron, if I can back you up a second. Now, did you mean that you didn't just mean the pistol brace? You meant the firearm itself. That you either turn that in or destroy the firearm.
That's not the case. It's about now. Okay, let me back up and say no. I'm 99% sure. No, what they're talking about is turning in the pistol brace itself, destroying that pistol brace, or registering that firearm as an SBR.
Yeah, and maybe I read it, maybe I saw it wrong. I was under the impression. Now, granted, you could make your AR or AK pistol pull that brace off, and suppose now this is my thought. If it's a regular tube that can accept and I absolutely, if we got members out there that know this better than us, we don't have everything right. We're just speaking off the cuff currently. I think it would be a risk to have a tube that could accept a brace and or a stock at that point. I mean, and to me, that's, I think, the point they're going to make, because there are tubes that can't accept a stock or a brace. So yeah. The point being is that it's so encompassing but yet so ambiguous in many ways. You never know what the ATF is going to do in these cases because, again, this pistol brace issue has been going on for years, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And so to the point is that before this administration came into office, they're saying, if you shoulder it, we can't do anything about it.
Just the fact that you misuse something doesn't reclassify the firearm that you're
Legally.
misusing that item on, right?
Yeah.
Well, Eric, so that was, I wanted to talk about that because due to this, I'm going to go ahead and start the process to register mine as a short barrel rifle. Of course, our business partner, Brian, also one of the co-hosts of the show. He hasn't been on in a while, but hey, he's still part of the team here.
Shout out to Brian. We miss you, buddy.
Yeah. It's all you have to do is shoot that guy a quick question, and he'll write you a tome on what you need to do.
Yep.
So he's pointed me in the right direction on how to get that set up. So I'm going to pay that tax, and I'm in the middle of it, man. I might as well get a suppressor for it also.
Yeah.
So on a lighter note, okay, let's just set this bull crap politics aside. Now let's talk a little gear, right? So I'm going to do that. And Eric, it seems like I recall you starting the process of getting a suppressor already, right? For your,
I had picked one out. That's about as far. And then, like you, Brian provided me the process to do so, but that's as far as I got. But I'm with you, man. I'm doing the same thing. Yep.
But because, right, this is getting out, we're going to get into a big fat line if we don't. That's why I'm going to jump on it. I think next week I'm going to jump on it. Now,
well, can you imagine the line of millions and millions of gun owners that they decide to go that route? It'll take. I'm just throwing a number out there. I got no clue. It could take years.
Yeah.
To get your tax stamp done.
Yeah, hey, I'm sure. Never mind. I'm going to go back into some politics that I don't need to.
Yep.
Now, what I'm curious, what silencer or suppressor did you choose?
Silencer Co. Omega 300.
Okay, that sounds like one that I remember him saying. So it seems like he was pointing me towards one of the Sakers. Does that sound correct too?
It may be, Aaron, but think about specifically one of the reasons I was going to do the Omega 300 was
because of the 300 blackout.
Yeah, which it works on other calibers and whatnot. But yeah, that was the sole. Plus, it's small. I'm trying to keep the package small.
Well, and Eric, so speaking of, and does Brian recommend, again, man, I've been having a conversation with some of my my internet forum buddies, some guitar players. I'm on a guitar forum called the Gear Page, and then we have one sub-forum thread about firearms where we keep it non-political, which is cool. But then a few of us have a little thread that's a private message, and we talk about whatever the hell we want. So we were talking about suppressors today, and I just said to him, man, I still am very ill-informed on suppressors.
Oh, bro, I think you and I, of all the gear we know fairly well, it's suppressors that we're newbies, big time.
Yeah. So what are Brian's recommendations on having multiple calibers? That I can hear him saying, yeah, you don't get a 45 caliber silencer so you can cover every single caliber you may have. What are his thoughts on that?
Yeah, Aaron, I think the 300 being an example that can do multiple calibers, but frankly, Aaron, depending on what your use is, I think he's essentially, I don't want to put words in his mouth, but if it serves a specific role, he goes into specificity and calibers. But then he certainly has multiple cans that, will do 30 caliber and 5.56. But to be honest with you, Aaron, he's had so many suppressors that I'm tracking. I think part of it was, being in the business that's the route he took. But yeah, Aaron, I think in a way he's kind of 50-50, 50 agnostic and 50 specificity, depending on what firearm you're putting it on, So yeah, I think maybe we should have him back on the show to talk about it.
Yeah, a-hole, get on here.
Yeah, Brian.
So, but I guess then, in other words, I probably should be looking at, because I know for sure that I don't plan on doing any other pistol caliber. I don't think I plan on doing any other pistols of any sort or short barrel rifles.
Nope.
At least at this point, I think this one I have is a be all end all, no compromise little gun. So it's Aaron, the only one I need.
Well, if I can say that one of the big reasons we went with pistols is because the point that they were completely legal and still are right now. Mm-hmm. It did give you a shorter package, regardless of the intent, the silliness of, hey, we don't like you, the intent that you have with that. It doesn't matter. I mean, how is that delineated? It's not delineated in the Second Amendment, of course, but the point being is they serve a niche role. They're nice to have, a shorter version, because they're compact. They can go into a bag a little more easy. But when it comes to all the problems now, we're to take those firearms across state lines, you got to file paperwork for it. Mm-hmm. So to me, I had a discussion with a good friend of mine. Shout out to Jeremy. He was asking me about that. Whether he should get an AR pistol or maybe just get another AR, or possibly he's talking about getting a SOCOM 16. And I told him, based on what's coming up, I said I wouldn't get an AR pistol.
Yep.
If you're going to get another AR, might as well just go with the regular AR again.
Bro, a friend of mine sent me a text today asking me about a specific AR pistol that his brother wanted to get, or mm-hmm. brother-in-law. And I said, number one, straight off the bat, that's going to be illegal here in about, right here in August.
Well, let's be clear. It may not, it won't be illegal with just the tube.
Yeah.
But the usefulness and ease of shooting that firearm, whether arm braced or however, is going to be real limited.
And let me be clear. What I meant was that firearm that he's wanting to get in that configuration will be illegal.
Gotcha. I got you, Aaron.
Yeah. Not the firearm itself, sorry, but in that configuration.
And I probably overstepped what you're saying. I apologize. Yeah.
You better apologize.
Oops. In a week, you can get your vengeance.
Man, I'm gonna bust you up.
Yeah, I saw Cliff sent out an email to all of us that are going to attend. He also mentioned that we could also bring our gis and train after the class if we wanted to.
I don't think I'm gonna want to. What's his problem?
He's hardcore. Cliff, I know you're listening out there. He's just hardcore. We'll see how we feel.
Yeah,
I'll bring a gi just in case. But again, if we're training 8 hours, sometimes you feel like I may be done at that point.
Hey, let's train jiu-jitsu and let's train force on force and grappling for 8 hours. Hey man, you want to go hit the mat some more?
Hey Cliff, man, he's hardcore, man. I get it though.
That's what I hear.
That's why he's a black belt. And that's why
and
that's
teaching
why he's,
teaching these legit courses. I can't wait.
I'm pumped, man. I'm sitting there. I'm feeling giddy when I saw that email. I'm looking forward to seeing you and meeting some new people, some new well-balanced people, and having fun.
Heck yeah. Well, I guess I need to research a can for my 223 or 5.56. So in other words, just kind of digressing, it sounds like I'm probably just going to go with since I'm saying I'm not going to build anything else, I'll just get a 5.56 and call it good.
Yeah, man. Maybe so, brother. My phone's buzzing up crazy, man.
I heard that buzzing on there, man. You're messing up the show. Hopefully I can edit that out.
I heard yours buzzing earlier. How about that?
I'm kidding. I'm not editing that stuff out.
Nope. Well, hey, man, I think we've blabbered on enough, man. It's been fun.
Well, it's fun to end this because we got pretty serious there in the middle. It's fun to kind of end it on a good note. I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to go in there and have a couple burritos, and I think I might have some IPA in there in the fridge.
Yeah, man.
Did I say that on the air?
Yeah, it's that. I'm not gonna lie. I'm gonna have a cold brew after this, man. I've pretty much abstained. I've got all my goals right now, but I was feeling it today. I thought I'd have a couple myself. So
I'm gonna go eat and have a beer, and then imagine this, Eric. I'm gonna go and play some guitar. I've got a really cool little Dr. Z amp it's an M12 110 combo amp that literally lives right in my living room. And when I spend a lot of time here in my office, I love to just go out there and grab a distortion pedal and play guitar in front of the TV with nothing that I'm required to work on. I'm not having to transcribe music for a gig. I just play whatever the heck I want. So that's what I'm going to do.
Well, it's funny you mention that because I'm sitting there in the room with my badass drums. I love them. And for the most part, I usually have a practice plan. But I will say that lately, every now and then, I might even come up the stairs and jump on them I may not even warm up. My warm up is just kind of tinkering with a little beat and just messing around with some stick patterns, and then I'll just play, man. Just play whatever.
Well, we're with these endeavors. Let's just speaking of music right now. I'm always striving, right? I'm always striving for something, whether I'm working on something new, working on lessons, or when I'm doing gigs a lot, I'm prepping music. Often, I will learn a song an hour or 30 minutes before I have to leave to go do the gig. So I've constantly got stuff like that going on. So every now and then I stop striving and I just go in there and play.
Yeah, just have fun.
Play, which is the reason why I started playing guitar anyway, right?
Yeah.
So,
all
right, buddy.
Well, have a good one, man. Great time.
Oh yeah, excellent time. I'll talk to you soon. If I don't talk to you, man, I'll see you here in Alabama in a week exactly.
Yeah, this will air afterwards, but that's okay. But yeah, man, I can't wait to see you next week, man. Let's do it.
Rock on. See you later.
Bye.